I still have debt from my previous degree, and then I have debt from my BSN degree, and now I'm not going to work, but I still have to live, and I have a baby. So what do I do? And that's when I was like, okay, I have to find a way out. I'm doing something else now. I'm strictly sales. I don't see any patients. I don't talk to any patients. I strictly just sell like home care services to OB-GYNs. So I'm still in like women's health, but I'm selling a service.
And how many hours a week are you working now?
It's hard to say because it's sales, it's performance based. I get paid salary and like bone commissions. So I don't work 40 hours.
What is up, guys? Jason here. Welcome back to the channel in our series, Nurses to Riches, The Road to Fire. Today's guest has taken her career in an unexpected and inspiring direction. After starting out in marketing, she became a nurse 12 years ago and later transitioned into medical sales, where she's now absolutely killing it. Along the way, she's paid off all her student loans, built a flexible career with fewer than 40 hours per week, and started coaching other nurses on how to break into sales. Whether you're curious about making more money, creating your own schedule, or exploring areas beyond traditional nursing roles, this is one story you won't want to miss. So tell us your name and a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Jeannie, and I am actually in medical sales with a nursing background.
Okay. And when did you become a nurse?
Oh God, maybe like 12, almost 13 years ago, I've been in nursing.
And where do you live?
I am from Houston, Texas.
Awesome. Okay. Did you grow up in Houston?
I did not, but I grew up in Texas, so I'm a Texas gal.
Cool. And okay, so now I want to talk about why you decided to become a nurse in the first place.
I think I have that conversation a lot with everyone. They're like, why did you do it? To be honest, I was in marketing and management before this. And I thought, okay, I want to do something different. I had some experiences in the hospital setting with like personal matters with family members. And I started feeling that like compelling pull that you get, like you see the nurses at the bedside and the care that they give. And I don't have anyone in my family that has like a medical background or nursing background. So it was totally new for me. And I mean, I was working in corporate and I thought, you know what, this sounds like something I might want to change to. It looks like a really stable career and it's some way I can give back. And that's really how I got into nursing. I took classes after work and I quit work and I went into like a second degree full program for 12 months to get my BSN.
Wow. So did you end up getting a degree in marketing before nursing?
I did. Yeah.
And when you took nursing classes, was it in an accelerated program or just a regular nursing program?
It was accelerated, but at first, you have to do all your basics because my background was in like business. So I had to do a lot of nighttime courses to learn the science, the anatomy, and things like that. And that's when I realized, why am I doing this outside of my job? I'm actually doing really well. My grades are better. I actually enjoy what I'm learning. And then I thought, okay, I think this is what I was meant to do. I was meant to go into nursing because I like it and I'm making really good grades without really trying that hard.
You're the exact opposite of me. So
But then
my
look
I
where
was
I am now. So
yeah. So I remember for me, my process was when I graduated high school, I started taking business classes in a college, like some random college in New York City. And I was also working in like the financial sector at the time. So I didn't really care about school because I thought I was making a lot of money in my
yeah.
job and I was more interested in starting a business even back way back then. So I ended up getting like a 1.4 GPA initially. And then I left that job and got another job that paid me twice as much. And I said, wow, I really don't need to go to school. And I ended up getting laid off, even though I started taking like some classes. I just because I wanted to make my mother proud, I said, okay, let me just go back to school. Got a 1.3 GPA again, but I ended up getting laid off from that job. And then thankfully, my boss who I had there was also laid off, and she got a job somewhere else. So she hired me to
hmm
that other position while I was not going to school at this time. And we all ended up getting laid off again within a year. And that's when I said, you know what, let me just actually like really go back to school and focus
Yeah.
on this and do something better for myself. And that's when I started taking nursing classes. But my GPA initially was like 1.2, 1.3. And then when I started taking college classes again, because I wanted to get into the nursing program, my thought process was like, maybe I can postpone the nursing program and just take other classes in different areas like computer science
Hmm.
and other business and marketing classes. And then maybe that will be the correct route for me to take and not nursing. But that didn't work out because I saw how the financial sector was really hit bad. And a lot of people that I knew that I used to work with who ended up getting jobs in other places in the 2008 recession, they all lost their jobs. But nobody in healthcare was losing their jobs. And
Yeah.
that's why I switched to nursing and I started taking nursing classes. But before I got into the nursing program, when I started doing better, my GPA was like 3.8. After I got into the nursing program, it was like 3.2. So I
You know
couldn't
what?
I couldn't go higher than that.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter what our
That's right.
GPA is, as
That
long
is
as you
right.
pass.
So, but you found a passion in something that was completely different than what you had been used to because you were doing marketing and then you started taking all these classes and you realized that, wow, these classes are a lot easier than I thought. And I really actually loved
Yeah.
taking these classes. So you ended up going to school for nursing completely. How long did it take for you to finish the nursing program?
Like a year. I started in
Wow,
January, graduated in December, and then the next year, January, I got my like license.
that is fast.
I know. I quit my job. I talked to like my fiance at that time, who's my
Mhm,
husband now, and
mhm.
my family, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go like full force. I can't work. Like I have no money, so you guys are gonna back me up, right? And I'm like, they're like, okay. So loans. You accumulate more loans, and you go at full force. But I think that's like something about me is if I feel like something is meant to be there, I lean hard into it and see which way it takes me, and that's like how I function now. If it feels good, I'm gonna lean into it.
Yeah. I think, I watched a podcast of, because I'm really into like startup companies now. I watch a lot of videos of startup companies, and there's this YouTube channel called the Y Combinator. It's
Hmm.
basically a company that invests in startups and founders. And one thing that they found is that the very successful people in life, when they are interested in doing something, they will do whatever it takes to pursue that area that they're interested in. And if they feel like there's like some barriers that may prohibit them or may make it more challenging, they will find a way around those barriers. And I think that's kind of like what you did. You're like, well, I know it's going to be hard with nursing, but I can find a way to make it happen. And you finished in a year.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, I didn't know anything about nursing except for what I experienced from like being a family member of a patient. And so I didn't have any other experience with nursing. Like I had no idea where they worked. I thought it was only the hospital. I didn't know anything. And I just went into it. I think that's like my type. I just drive and go straight in for it. And then once I get there, I try to figure it out.
Yeah.
And of course, I try to figure it out. I'm like, oh my God, this is not what I envisioned it to be.
So what did you do after you graduated?
I actually went straight into a graduate like residency program that I had at my school. Like I volunteered at a hospital that was like building out like an L&D unit, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go volunteer. It feels good. I'm going to go apply for residency, and that's what I did first. I applied for med surge and labor and delivery, and I just remember the med surge director looking at me, and she's like, "You're great, but I'm going to be honest with you, you're not going to make it here." And I'm like, okay. But you know what? I remember her and I thank her for that because I wouldn't survive. I'd be miserable.
So you applied for med surge but ended up in an L&D?
Yeah,
Oh, wow. Yeah,
yeah,
I've seen that from time to time. Like I've had when I was working in New York, I used to precept a lot of new grads, and from time to time we'd get some new grads, and this is in the emergency department. So you can imagine how much harder it is to learn as a new grad in an
yeah.
emergency department than it is in an inpatient unit. And we would get every now and then a new grad who just they're more like the ICU type. They like to really think, slow
Hmm.
down, and like manage the thought process with one particular patient throughout their stay. And there have been plenty of times that thankfully our hospital did not just say, oh, you didn't make the cut. You're out of here. You're not going to work in this hospital. Instead, what they did was they said, maybe you'll be a better candidate, a better employee in a different unit than this one. Maybe this one is just not the one suited for you. And actually, it turns out most of the time that was true because most of these nurses who end up in the ICU instead of the ER or step down units, the PCUs, they performed much better in those units than they would have in the ER.
Yeah. It's really like not knowing where you're going and then maybe someone can guide you with the right placement for you. So
Yeah.
I'm thankful for that, and I loved my experience working like an L&D.
Yeah. So how long did you work in an L&D unit for?
Oh God, I think maybe like 2.5 years, not very long at all. I got pregnant and I was like, I remember my charge nurse, like she was like had twins and she was running and I was like, oh my God, like I'm not doing that. I don't know how you're doing that. I am not doing that. And
Yeah.
I just remember that like light bulb. I was like, I need a exit plan.
Hmm.
And so I did it for about maybe 2.5 years. I did PRN for a little bit to keep up with my skills, but I did not last on bedside for very long.
Mm. So
Yeah.
you did it for 2 years, and then you got pregnant, and you saw your charge nurse, and she was doing the same thing. She was pregnant and running around while she
Oh
was
yeah,
doing it.
and she had twins, and she was running,
Okay.
and I just remember her like running with like the delivery cart, and I'm like, I have no idea how she. And in L&D we wear the hospital scrubs, and the pants are falling down, and she's pulling them up, and I'm like, oh my God, this is for real. This that I So I left when I was pregnant and
Mm.
went to a clinic.
And was that your first child?
Yeah.
Oh. And what year was that in?
Oh God. Now you're like asking me numbers. 2013 maybe
Okay,
or
2010.
14. Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that.
Okay, and do you remember approximately? This is a long time ago, but do you remember how much they were paying you at the time?
Oh yeah, I think I started at $24 an hour.
Wow.
$24. And I'm in
Yeah,
Texas.
yeah.
So I had no idea if that was good or bad. I was like, I didn't negotiate. I don't think you can negotiate when you're like a new grad. But yeah, $24 an hour.
And so when you were working in marketing, how much do you remember how much you were making at the time?
It's salary, right? So I was making 40s, like mid 40s
Oh, okay.
at the
Okay.
time. So, actually I thought nursing, oh, you're making better hours.
Yeah.
And I did not know that nurses only worked 36 hours because it was considered full time. Like, I didn't even know that. I'm like, why don't they tell you that in nursing school? I had
Yeah.
no idea. I didn't know what hourly work was because I was doing salary. Like, it's like a huge mind shift. I'm like, what? I have to clock in and out. Like, I have to take a lunch. Like, I don't get to pee. Like, I don't understand what's happening. I'm very confused.
This is a lot of this everything that you say, every time I interview somebody, they share the same sentiment. Like, why aren't some of these things taught in nursing school? Like,
Like the
uh,
basics. Yeah.
exactly. And I think also this goes for like all other careers too. This is why so many Americans are in debt, is because they don't learn anything about budgeting and personal finance in
No,
school.
no, not at all.
So, okay, so you were making $24 an hour here, and then you worked there for 2 years, and then you got pregnant. And you said you did pick up some PRN jobs.
I did, and it was like maybe $35 an hour doing PRN, like postpartum. I was doing that here and there at different hospitals to supplement, but I was doing it on top of my Monday through Friday job. Like I was working in a clinic Monday through Friday, but then I was still doing PRN like every other Saturday.
Yeah.
I know it's terrible. I don't know why people do that. Like people still do it now, and I'm like, why the hell are you doing that? Don't do that. You don't have to
Yeah.
do that. Like
Yeah. And how did you get this PRN jobs?
I really don't remember. There was someone else that was doing it. It was like a staffing company, and I didn't know what staffing was. And I just applied. I was like, oh, well, I was making $26 an hour. So 30 something sounds decent for a Saturday doing, postpartum. That's okay. It's not too heavy. So it was like a staffing agency.
Yeah, I don't know if you've watched any of our previous videos, but I interviewed this nurse who worked PRN. She does PRN jobs now, but during COVID, she made close to $1 million with Crucial contracts. I don't know if you know the company Crucial. It's a
No,
staffing company. Okay, but everybody was making a ton of money during COVID. However, she was basically just traveling the entire year of like 2020, 2021. And during that year, in between her contracts, which she had like some gaps in between, she would pick up PRN jobs as well. And she literally worked like the entire year, but she made like a little bit under $1 million that
that's
year.
incredible. That's like
Yeah,
hustling for real. I don't know. I don't think I'm about the hustle life. I'm
yeah.
about the like I want a peace of mind life. Like I still want to be good, but I
Mhm.
don't want to be broke. And I
Yeah,
don't want to like hustle so hard.
yeah,
I mean, it'd be great to make $1 million,
yeah.
but I
You
don't want
know,
to like physically do the work.
It's funny. I tell Monica all the time. I've been an ER nurse for about close to 12 years now, and I work an average of like 17 hours a week. But that's because I was hired on as a 20-hour shift employee. Like I work 20 hours a week, 40 hours every 2 weeks, and the way that's split is basically I work two 8-hour shifts one week and three the other week.
Hmm.
But I've condensed them so now it's like 5 days in a row.
Yeah,
I may work like, let's say for example, Saturday, Sun no, yeah, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but then I'm off 9 days in a row before I have to return to work.
that's
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
how to
yeah,
finagle that, that's
yeah,
so smart. Like
yeah.
if someone would have told me how to do those things, it might would have not been so bad, you know?
Oh, man, yeah. And the funny thing is, though, I feel like I work too much. I feel like it's too many hours. So I still use my sick leave. I still go on vacation. I use my paid vacation leave. So in essence, I actually work less than 20 hours a week because I use my sick leave. I use my paid
Yeah,
vacation time, and I still get paid for those hours.
that's
Right?
incredible. Like
Yeah.
that is so smart.
Yeah.
I
But
would pay to know that.
you're probably going to think we're crazy though, because we're leaving these jobs and we're going to move back to New York, where we came from, because we miss our family. We have our son now. And even though I make $103 an hour and Monica makes $133 an
Yeah.
hour, the plan is not work as a nurse when we move to New York, because we've gotten to a position where we might not have to do that anymore. So we'll see. That's the goal. But
I love that. And
yeah.
that's like the long-term goal that you're reaching, which is fine. And I love that you share your story so other people can do the same thing because sometimes you just have to take really hard choices to get yourself into a good situation to make better choices, you know? So I
Yeah.
love that.
Thanks. So what did you do in this clinic when you worked there?
Well, I came from L&D, so it was an OB-GYN clinic and I was a triage nurse. So I just did phone calls, prior authorization, scheduling, the basic clinic work. It was very redundant. It was fine because I was pregnant. So it was good. I was like, this is nice. Like, go in at 8, leave at 5. It's totally fine. No big deal until the baby came. So that changed everything.
Yeah. So what did you do when the baby came?
Well, I'm thankful my mom was watching him at the time, but I would cry every day because I'm like, you get off at 5, then we drive home in traffic. We get home like at 6:30, and he goes to bed at 7. And I was like, what I'm like, what the heck? Like, this is not fair that I have to do this. So then I switched jobs and I moved to a surgery center because I wanted better hours. And that's what I did. Like I do everything I told you. Like when I feel something, I lean into it. So I felt like I wanted more time with him. And the beauty of nursing is you can switch your shifts. So I got a pre-op gig and I would wake up at 4 a.m. to work from 5:15 until about like 1. And I would drive home and I would take a nap with him because he would take his naps like at 2. And then he would wake up and we would like do everything, get him ready for bed, 7:30. And I would take a Benadryl and like melatonin at 8 o'clock to go to bed every night at 8:30 to wake up at 4. And that's what I kept doing. And I was like, what am I doing with myself? Like, and I wasn't even making much there either. I think it was like 30 something dollars an hour, maybe 34 doing
Wow.
pre-op, which is
Yeah.
still okay because I mean it's not difficult. It was
Yeah.
a good schedule, but
It's also the same amount that you were making in your PRN jobs, if you think about it, because
yeah.
and then you have benefits in this job, right?
Yeah. Well, there's another issue, right? So I always left early. I would do pre-op and I would do so fast. And they would be like, do you want to stay and finish pack you? And I'm like, I'm going to go home. So I would leave every day. And I remember that one year, my husband, I looked at him and I was like, I think I made maybe $30,000 this year because I did not even work like a full-time employee. I don't think I worked even part-time as a full-time. And he's like, what the hell? And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And that's when I applied to like grad school.
You sound like me
I
again.
know. Oh my God, we're so similar.
I hate working, and the reason, just like you, I'd rather spend time with my family. Like,
Yeah.
why do you want to be at work all the time?
Yeah, I'm like, get me out of here. Like, okay, you need someone to go home early. Like, pick me. I don't care. And then later, when you get your paycheck, I'm like, oh my God, this not.
That is
How do
so
I
true.
pay my loans? I was deferring everything. Everything
Mm.
was on deferment at that time.
Yeah. Thankfully, I would say for us, since we're located in Sacramento, California, with the wages that we make, if I work, like, the hours that I'm working right now, like let's say 17 hours a week, 20 hours a week, I
Hmm.
still bring home like 115, 120,000 a year. But
That's
if I were,
good.
yeah, yeah, that's more than enough for me. But when we first moved here, I was working an average of like 24 hours a week, and just by working 24 hours a week, I was bringing home like 180, 190,000. And Monica, since she was making a higher salary, she could work less and still make way more than me, which really helped boost our income at a time when we needed to pay off a lot of debt. Because that's the
Yeah.
reason why we worked a little bit more when we
Yeah.
first moved here. We just wanted to pay off all this debt. And now we don't have any debt except for our home.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
we're at a point where we don't have to work that many hours.
We
But
are
you said
very
you ended up,
similar.
yeah, and you said you ended up going to grad school, right? What did you end up studying?
Okay, well, I went to an MSN program. I did like a semester for a family nurse practitioner program. Then I applied to my previous school, who they were giving me like a full ride scholarship. And I remember them telling me, we can get you a full scholarship for the NP program, but you have to quit. Like, this is not a program that you can work. And I'm like, okay, so let's see here. I still have debt from my previous degree, and then I have debt from my BSN degree. And now I'm not going to work, but I still have to live and I have a baby. So what do I do? And that's when like I was like, okay, I have to find a way out. And I just remember I had a friend that I went to school with, and she was in pharma. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, how do I have no idea where you're at and how do I get there? And she didn't really have as much intel to give me, just like what she did. And I'm like, I don't know what you do, but I want to do what you're doing because you have this lifestyle where you're taking your kids to lacrosse and you're going to Pilates in the morning. And I'm over here like drugged up on Benadryl to go to sleep early. And I just remember I started to apply, and my husband is in sales, but he's in technology. And I would just always like try to pull information from people, like that corporate side of me, like, where do I look? Where do I apply? And I just started doing all of that. And so I know I'm going on a whole thing. You're asking about what
No,
school,
no,
but
no, I like it. Go ahead, keep
yeah, yeah.
going.
So luckily, I got an offer after going through like multiple interviews with like an infusion pharmacy. And I didn't even know what it was, but I just remember at that time, I was in the middle of my second semester of my NP program. I almost failed pharmacology. I remember I had to make like a 95 to pass on the exam. And I was like, this is not good. What do I do? But luckily, I like put pedal to the metal and really focused on finding a different job that had like just something different where it would pay me more. Because ultimately, I didn't go back to school because I wanted to be a nurse practitioner. I did it because I wanted to have higher income. Because where can I go making more than $34 an hour? And all I'm doing is stocking fluids and putting IVs in. Like what can I do? And I think that was like the turning point for me. It's like realistically doing the same task is fine for some people, but for me it's not enough. So that
Totally.
is how I, went to NP school and then I dropped out. I was so happy. It's like a weight lifted off my shoulder when I got that offer letter. I was like, oh my God, I can finally do something else and make as much as an NP that starts like right when they graduate. I'm like, that was it. And I didn't know anything else.
And you said this is an infusion pharmacy
Yeah.
clinic center.
I didn't know what
Okay.
it was, honestly, but it's a pharmacy that dispenses medications to patients at home, like IV antibiotics, home TPN, enteral feeds, things like that.
And how did you find out about this place?
It was actually from Indeed, and I had applied, and a hiring manager reached out to me.
Indeed, it's crazy because there's so many ways that people can get jobs and they don't even realize it. They think, oh, the only way I can get a job is by applying through the career page on a company's website, like a
Yeah.
hospital or something like that. But there's more to it. Like there's LinkedIn too. You can reach out to like
hmm
recruiters on LinkedIn. You can apply for jobs in LinkedIn. You can apply through Indeed. There's so many different companies and so many different ways. But it's just putting yourself out there and also even networking with people. Like that's a good way to get a job.
100% why I'm so passionate about like why I create content too, because I miss out on those things. I'm like, well, I didn't know that, so now I'm going to tell people that in a cohesive order
Mhm.
where you can absorb it, because it's a lot. But I'm thankful because it led me to where I am now. But what I had known, what I've known now, and what I do as a nurse working in sales, I may have never gone back to nursing school. And I say that because ultimately, if I love healthcare, but I'm really good at marketing and sales, I should have just went that way.
Mm, yeah. So, what was your role and what were your responsibilities in this job in the pharmacy dispensary or the pharmacy that you were working at?
Well, it was like a pharmacy that dispenses IV medications, right? Anything liquid. And they have sales reps. And the sales reps would make the sale, meaning send me the referral and my pharmacy would dispense the medication. So as a nurse, I was like the clinical sales support. I would go in and educate patients before they discharged. Like, this is your central line. This is how you flush it appropriately. When you go home, like I would do the care coordination and education, but I never would touch the patient. Like I'm legally in sales. So I go into a hospital and I will educate the patient before they leave, or I'll like pick up the phone and do like a virtual education with them, how we have like televisits now, and like go through their supplies with them and tell them leave that there, the home care nurse is coming tomorrow, you're going to get your dressing changed once a week. Like it was lots of education, but by doing that and being really efficient, then you boost up sales, right? Because more people are going to want to refer to you.
That sounds like a sweet gig.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it because it's very clinical. But then I didn't have to physically touch patients
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
Yeah, it was like a different type of touch and helping them. Basically, you're helping them navigate the healthcare system
Mhm.
outside of the hospital. Like I didn't even know that patients could leave the hospital with like central lines. Like I didn't know that at that time. I was like, wait, what? I was blown. I'm like, wait, because I'm an L&D. I don't have patients that discharge like with pig lines or
Yeah,
tube feeds. I don't. They go home with a baby. So I wasn't
yeah,
familiar with that.
yeah. And do you still work there, or are you doing something else?
I'm doing something else now. I'm strictly sales. I don't see any patients. I don't talk to any patients. I strictly just sell like home care services to OB-GYNs. So I'm still in like women's health, but I'm selling a service.
I see. And how much were you getting paid when you worked for the pharmacy?
This is like something that is difficult to like really go into full detail because I think it depends on the position, but I was offered like a salary. So I think the salary was like 85 for a base salary. And then I worked with the sales team. So every quarter, if we hit our numbers, I would get a bonus commission that could be anywhere between like $1,500 to $3,000. They also gave like car allowance, cell phone allowance, which was like additional $600 a month for having a vehicle. It was like really nice
Yeah.
things. So
Mhm.
it depends. Like base, it's $85, right?
Wow.
$85,000 a year
Yeah.
was the base, but I get a car allowance, so that's maybe like another $8,000.
Yeah.
So that's why I made that decision. I was like, okay, I'm making basically more than six figures if I hit like all of the commissions and with the car, and I don't have to go back to school and I don't have to like accumulate $15,000 in debt. Sign me up.
So did you end up foregoing your education or your pursuit of education in the FNP program so that you can continue with the pharmacy
Yeah.
sales and the
Yeah.
education? Oh, I
I
love
I
that.
withdrew from my scholarship and I withdrew from my program.
The way you viewed it was like you already had so much student loan debt, and you at this point when you ended up getting this job, you were making enough money, even more money than you would have made as an NP at the time, right? So what was the point for you to go to school
Yeah,
if you
that
were
was a
already making
turning
a lot?
point.
Yeah. A lot of people don't realize this. There's so many different ways that nurses can make money without having to go into their NP or FNP or Psych NP and other areas like that. You don't
Right.
have to pursue additional education, but you can educate yourself in ways that will allow you to make more money. And that's what you did.
Yeah, and things are different now. I think our mindset we're taught is like you have to do this and you have to get a degree and then you have to get certification. Like you really don't have to get certification if you have the experience, or if you can at least translate the words that you can do it, then you can do it.
Yeah. So you said you ended up getting now this other job in sales, right? In
Mhm.
medical sales. Is it, you said it's a different company?
It's different company, yes, from my initial job that I
Mhm.
had before.
Okay.
So it's completely different. And now I'm in a sales position. So sales, I know you're probably going to ask me about how much they pay, right?
Yeah.
So with sales, it's different than a sales support
Mm.
position. So previously, when I was doing the education, my commissions or bonuses, I really don't have commission, but my bonuses are tied to the sales rep that I'm working with. And I did that for a while, but I realized the sales reps that were working were making really good money if they are hard workers or they're really able to build those relationships. And I'm really good at building relationships. So I was like, should I try it? Should I do it? Am I good at sales? I'm good at marketing. I'm good at. So then I made the change. It's difficult to like explain, but when you're in a full on sales position, sometimes your salary seems like it's less, but it's not, because your earning potential is so much more. It wasn't until I started talking to more sales reps and I just asked them, like, hey, like, how much do you really make? Because you could make like $70,000 a year for a base salary, but you're bringing in $80,000 in commission. So
Mhm.
you're actually making 150 plus the car, plus everything else that we get on top. And you're not doing the education side. And I'm doing the education, which I'm talking more. I'm doing the CEUs, I'm doing the presentations, the speaker events, and you just coordinated it and like catered the lunch. So I made the switch. And
That's
I
pretty
love it.
smart. That is
Yeah.
pretty smart. Now, do you need any experience in as a nurse to get a job like that?
No, not for sales. You don't need experience as a nurse. If you have some healthcare background, great. But a lot of the sales reps that I meet have like bachelor's degree. They're teachers, they have sales experience, and then I do meet some nurses or other healthcare professionals that are in sales. So I see so many different ways to get into the industry, and that's why I'm like, where is your background? So we can leverage what you have now without thinking about applying for another like program, like a
Yeah.
school or something.
Yeah, but you're in a very unique position because you could be touching the lives of nurses who want to leave the bedside and they just don't know what else they can do. And they think that they need a nursing degree to get into something else, but maybe they don't. However, that nursing degree can be helpful for
Yeah.
them because they understand the lingo a lot better.
Mhm.
Maybe they understand the type of clients that they're going to be reaching out to a lot better.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so I think you're a really unique position compared to somebody who may have like just a finance background or, a background that's unrelated to healthcare.
Yeah. And that's what I found, because when I did work in the clinic, I networked a lot
Mm,
with the reps that did come in. There's some clinical staff that just ignore all the reps. Like, oh, I made friends with them. I got to know them because I was curious, right? I leaned into that curiosity. It was like, what do you do? What is your degree? Why do you sound so intellectual? PhD, didn't finish med school, now is working for pharma. I was like, okay, someone else. She sounds so intelligent. She was doing laboratory sales. She went to pre-med, but she didn't. And I'm like, okay. So like, my wheels are turning
yeah.
is how it happened. I'm like, okay, this is quite interesting.
And how did you end up finding that job?
The one I have now,
Hmm.
honestly, it was through networking. So when I was a nurse in the clinic, I would like network. I told you that. And now, like 7 years later, I noticed that he was retiring on LinkedIn. He was like, I'm retiring. And so I reached out to him on LinkedIn. I'm like, hey, are you retiring? Because I think I saw an opening at the company that you're with. And he's like, actually, Jeannie, you would be like the perfect role for this, because I used to refer to that rep and now I'm like, I want to be that rep. So that's exactly how it happened. It's not like I wanted that position. I was already in a sales support role. But when the opportunity arose, I was like, okay, I'm going to try it. I'm going to do something full circle. Like I used to do all the paperwork and send it to this person in their company. And now I'm going to be the one showcasing and marketing the same services that I used to use for the patients that we had. So if it's something that you believe in, whether it's a product or a service, you've used it, you've touched it before, there's so much more meaning to it. And then when I talk about it to like providers or other people, I think they can feel the truth in it. And then you build those connections and then you build the business that way. Like
You know,
everything is through connection.
I've had like several conversations with nurses that I've interviewed, and many of them have ended up in their role and their positions because of the networking that they've done. And like again, you just like validated what we've been talking about is the fact that you had already had contacts with this person from a prior experience in your
Yeah.
job. And then you saw that on LinkedIn they were going to retire.
Yeah.
So because of you reaching out to this person, you ended up getting a job which you are very happy in now. And is providing such a good income for you that you don't have to be at the bedside like every other nurse.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. And I know that in sales, you can make way more money. Like if you like are in a different industry. So I do a service-based business is what I'm promoting or selling, but I know there's like medical device and there's other things where you can work in the OR. And it's just, I'm always honed in on what do you want for your goal? Like you want to make buku money, you want like, depends on the kind of roles that are good for you in the industry. And for me, I'm at a time where I do like to hustle, but I do also like to have my downtime because my kids are young. So it's the best of both worlds. And that's why I always talk about it. I
Yeah.
love it.
So how many kids do you have now?
I have two.
Okay. So when did you end up having your second one?
Okay, so I dropped out of NP school. I started in the sales support role. I waited 6 months because I knew FMLA, you have to be working for a company for 12 years, and I got pregnant. Like I literally had a timeline, okay? I remember I was 39 years old, and I was like, okay, I'm 39. Do I go to NP school, finish when oh, not 39. I was 29. Sorry, I'm not that old. So I was 29. I was like, do I go to NP school, finish when I'm 31, get pregnant, and then have a baby at 32? Or, I waited. I
Yeah.
waited. That was also putting pressure and the weight on my shoulders too, because I wanted to have a second baby, but I didn't know if I should have the baby after NP school or not. So I just like eliminated that choice.
Yeah. And how many hours a week are you working now?
It's hard to say because it's sales, it's performance based. I get paid salary
Mm.
and like bone commissions. So I don't know. I don't work 40 hours.
Okay. Just
Yeah.
fewer than 40 hours.
It is fewer than 40 hours. But if I get a phone call or like a referral comes in late in the evening or like a provider calls me or hospital calls me on a weekend, I will answer it. I don't mind answering. I don't have call, but it's typically a question they need to ask because a patient needs a service. So I'm going to answer it.
I see.
So less than 40 hours, but my phone is always available.
I see. Do you make your own schedule, or are you just like they make the schedule for you, you work around those hours, and if somebody happens to call you because it's not really that much effort for you to answer the phone, you just happen to answer the phone?
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
an emergency. No one makes the schedule for me, and I love the autonomy in it. I make my own schedule. So this definitely is not a role for someone that needs structure. I make my own structure. I'm very like analytical in that case. I make my own schedule. I allot my own times. I build out where I'm going and I do it myself. And then if it doesn't do well, I audit and I restructure what I do and move it again. It's like same thing with content creation, right? It's the
Yeah.
same as in sales.
And are you working from home or are you working in an office?
I work in my home office, which is here, in my car most of the time. That's it.
That's actually nice. That's a nice gig if you get to work in your car.
I'm always working in my car. I listen to like audiobooks all the time. I'm driving all the time, but I'm not driving every day. I don't drive every day from 8 to 5.
So go over like a typical work week for you. Let's say you come in on Monday and the end of the week is on Friday. Like what are the kinds of tasks that you're given and how do you go about completing those tasks?
Oh gosh, I mean, I make my own task, right? So I'll give you an example of like a week. On Monday mornings, I always make my coffee, take my kids to school, and I walk up into my office and I check my emails. And I basically run all of my revenue reports, all of the data, trying to see where last week was. And I check all of my numbers for that week. And I'm like, okay, well, I already have like how many lunches or breakfasts do I have scheduled for this week? I know I'm going to go to that side of town, depending on my territory. So I just block everything out. And some Mondays I am out in the field marketing, but a lot of the time I spend my Mondays morning planning my week out is what I do. And planning it means like if I'm going to go to the north side of town, then I want to make sure I have a list of at least 10 to 15 offices or hospitals that I want to hit up while I'm up there. So I plan it that way. And then that's pretty much it. I check my email throughout the day. If I need documents for like our nursing team or for work, I'll go get them. And then on Tuesday morning, same thing. I will just go straight to my car. I have my clipboard. I have exactly where I'm going. My lunch is scheduled already, and I will hit up as many offices as I can before my lunch. I will have a lunch meeting. I'll do an in-service, maybe like on our services. I'll go over insurance verifications. I'll just talk about like our processes. And then in the afternoon, I might hit up a few more offices on the way home to see if I can schedule any more lunches coming out. So right now I do a lot of calling on provider offices and hospitals. And a lot of the times I can't see them unless I set up a meeting. So if I don't have a meeting with them, I am basically cold calling and I'm setting up meetings. And I try to set them up 4 to 6 weeks out. And I have found that my territory has gotten bigger and bigger. So I'm from Houston, but I cover Houston, Austin, San Antonio, and parts of East Texas. So for me, I have to really plan it out so I don't drive like a ping pong everywhere. And then so on Wednesday, I might go to the south side of town and I'll hit up all the south side. But you have to also consider that I'm calling on places that have specific office hours. So no one wants to see a rep at 8 a.m. when they're starting clinic. No one wants to see a rep from 12 to 1:30 if you don't have a lunch appointment because they already have a luncheon with another rep, right? And then no one wants to see a rep after 4 to 4:30 because they're finishing clinic. So my pockets of time is like I maximize like 8:45 to 11:45, and then I
Mhm.
maximize the afternoon, which is like 1:30 until 4 o'clock, and then I drive home if I'm in the field.
I see.
So every week is different depending on how busy it is. I typically try to spend 3 days in the field, and then 2 days are doing administrative work, reanalyzing and auditing what I need to do the next week.
Mm.
And so, yeah, that's my week.
Yeah. And how do you get your contacts? Are you given a list or do you just search for them yourself?
So I do a little bit of both. When I started in this role, they already had a list for me. So I started off with a previous rep's list, but my selling point is I'm a L&D nurse by heart. I know this territory. I actually know a lot of the like doctors in the area. I know the hospitals already. So then I also added new call points to my list as well.
Mm.
So, depending on the company, they might have something for you or they want you to cold call. So I really have a mixture of both. And I still do cold call to new places because there's new offices that open every day, new providers.
What do you think is the most challenging thing you do in your job?
Challenging? I love it. I don't see anything is wrong with what nothing. I guess the most challenging part is getting through somewhere where you don't have a relationship with them, like actually building rapport with someone that maybe already favor a different like company.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it just feels like you have so much freedom in this job to really, like you said, you set your own schedule, you work on your own hours. So it feels like it's so laid back compared to working at the bedside. That's
Oh,
probably why it doesn't feel challenging at all.
yeah, I mean, no, not at all. I cried when I worked bedside. I cried. I just felt so stressed and I had hives all the time. And I'm like, I would never make it on any other unit. And I was in L&D and I would cry. Like I would have a patient in preterm labor and then she delivered a baby's in the NICU and I would just sob. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. And then this is like, oh, okay, well, you're angry at me because like something didn't go through. I'll just come back and fix it. No big deal.
So at what point did you start making kind of like not a switch, but making your presence known on social media about what it is that you do?
I think maybe a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, I remember talking to another rep because we would co-market together. I'm like, God, don't you think someone would love to talk about like what we're doing? And I remember him. He was like, no, you're too old. That ship has sailed. No one gets on TikTok anymore. I'll remember this guy. And I was like, you're an and I started on TikTok. I didn't know how to post. I was so, all of my videos are so awkward and now I'm so much at talking. It was so weird. But I would just like record my day and people would be like, what are you doing? How do you do that? How do you do that? And it kind of like built from there. Like I never started out with like a common goal. My goal was just, I want people to be aware.
Yeah, that's same here. When we started our YouTube channel, we really just started because when we moved to California, we didn't have anybody to like really talk about how much nurses get paid up here and
Yeah.
the fact that there's a lower cost of living of California that not many people know about. And we had a friend who moved here before us. He was working with me in New York and he's a nurse himself, so is his wife. And when he moved from my unit where we were working together, he didn't even tell me he left. And he was a friend of mine. And I'm like, I messaged him a few weeks afterwards because I thought he was on vacation or something. And I'm like, hey man, where have you been? And he's like, oh, I forgot to tell you, we moved to California. So after that interaction, I kept engaging with him and he was telling me all these good things about California. And I was like, is this really true? Like, nobody mentioned this ever to me before. It's so hard for me to believe. But I ended up getting a nursing student who I was precepting at the same hospital. She told me her parents, who both worked at a hospital here in Northern California called Kaiser Permanente, they were
Mm-hmm.
making $200,000 a year without working overtime. And I could not believe that. Like, this was like 8 years ago. I was like, there's no way, that's impossible. And she came back with like the schedule, like the wage schedule for
Mm-hmm.
their hospital. And I was just like blown away. So when me and Monica decided to move here, I said, more people need to know about this. More nurses need to know about this. In the
Yeah.
same way that you're telling other nurses they need to know that there's another side to nursing besides the bedside.
Yeah.
I felt the same way when I started making the videos. I said, there's nurses that could benefit so much from this that are drowning in debt, who could move to an area like this, buy a house in like 8 months, pay off all their debt, and not have to worry about money as much, and also work fewer hours because now they have no debt.
Yeah.
They don't have to work as many hours anymore to pay off all that debt. And that's the position we're in right now. But it's gotten to the point where we've built so many relationships because of social presence that we've
Yeah,
made on, online. And we created a coaching program, but now we're focused on something way bigger. Like we're building an app. There's so
I
many things
know.
that we're working on.
It's incredible. It's
Mhm.
incredible. And I think it's like what your audience ask the most, you're like, that's what they're interested in.
Yeah.
So I never thought I was going to be like a coach. I'm like,
Mhm.
to be honest with you, I'm like, wait, what? They're asking me all these questions and I can't answer everybody. So I created like a free guide, right? Is how it started. I'm like, just download it. Like, I don't know. Just download the dang thing. And then I kept getting questions like, oh, well, what about your resume? What about your resume? I'm like, okay, well, here, let's use mine. And I sold it for like $15 at first. And people were like, oh my God, I got a job. I got an interview. I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, what? Sorry, my language. And I was like, okay. I see people online coaching. Like, how do they do that? And I want to be a legit person though. Like, I want to be able to know what I'm doing, even though I've experienced it. I want to do it in a professional manner and to certain standards. And so that's why I started taking coaching classes and I got a certification and I'm like doing all these because I just felt like now I needed that. Feel better about myself. If I'm going to work with someone and charge someone for the knowledge that I know, I want to do it in a certain cohesive order in something that's actually going to benefit them and not because at the end of the day, everyone might see, you or me and say, I want to do that. Like, great. Let me give you everything step by step and then you figure it out and you do it yourself. Like, I'm not going to do it for you, but it's your responsibility. If you want it, come and get it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So can you talk about your coaching program, what it does for nurses or anybody who wants to get into what you do and things you offer in that coaching program?
Sure. So, I started off, I told you with like a freebie and a resume, and I started taking one on one calls with people. And over the past year, I figured out the missing pieces that people need for their different types. Because as nurses, it's different, or even a healthcare professional, it's different when you transition over. Like, I have that business background already, they're missing that piece. So it's really adding that verbiage to them and adding that confidence to them during that process. So I created a program where it goes to the basics of basically like the questions you're asking me now. Like, what do you do every day? What is the role like? There's more than just sales. There's, like I told you, the education piece, the care coordination piece. There's so many other like different roles that they could do beyond just sales, but I consider it medical sales. So the program encompasses all of the basic information. So you don't go in there asking a dumb question, basically. And then I pull like interview skills, interview tips, negotiation skills from my own personal experiences throughout the whole program. So I have a coaching program that basically encompasses something from the very basic all the way to the end. Because I've noticed a lot of people reach out to me again and they're like, I can't get an interview. Or I have so many interviews, I can't make it. They say I have no experience. I have no sales experience. And I'm like, no, you don't know how to sell yourself. That's your problem. Your problem is you're not articulating your value correctly. And so let me help you. And as soon as like that light bulb turns on and you come in there with that confidence, then they're like, it's working. So then now I have like this program and I'm like, okay, I have to change it up again because I can't do so many calls, right? So I'm going to try to change it up and do something, maybe make it self-paced and then add in different types of ways to work with me instead.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened with us.
Yeah.
Initially, I was doing one-on-one calls,
Hmm.
and after a while, it's like, okay, you're doing a lot of one-on-one calls. That's kind of becomes overwhelming after a while. So I decided to create just the coaching program. But in the coaching program, I was going to do a monthly coaching call. When we launched it, though, I felt bad because I myself, if I ever purchase a program, I'd like to have more access to my coach.
Yeah.
Right. So I said, okay, let's offer a weekly coaching call at the very least at the beginning. And we did that. We did it for about 2, 3 months almost. Then we realized this is actually taking a lot of our time to do this and make sure we schedule a time slot for it every single week. So then now we went back to that model that we promised them, which is just one coaching call per month.
Hmm.
However, I decided like a few weeks ago that I would offer every now and then like sporadic one-on-one sessions, like 15-minute one-on-one sessions with our members. And I regret doing it because like last week we had 2 days that I set aside just to schedule some calls, and I had like 12 members scheduled like 15-minute calls one day on Wednesday, and I two of them ended up canceling on me. So like
Hmm.
it split up my day in a way where it was like very awkward. I could have done something with that extra time, but I wasn't able to because of the way that those meetings were scheduled.
Yeah.
And then the next day, another two also canceled, so that also messed up my entire week, really. And I said I'm not gonna do that anymore.
Yeah.
You know? But I will say this: I've gotten many messages from our members who have said that they've been able to get their license. They've moved to California because that's what our coaching program is for, to
Yeah.
show nurses how to move, right? So they've moved to California. They've gotten jobs at Kaiser. Some of them have gotten jobs at Stanford, all these high paying hospitals in Northern California. And they all say that they don't regret their decision to move here one bit. And that was the goal, right? When you create a program, you want them to say that this was the best decision I've ever made. And
Yeah.
I'm glad, this is why, like, I love having people like you on our show, because I know you're very genuine. Like, a lot of nurses are genuine. Like, this is what we do, right? We have to be
Yeah.
empathetic. We have to listen to others. We have to sympathize with others. And we show that through the coaching programs that we create, because we care not just
Yeah.
about making money. We care that others are making money too, and they're happy with their lives.
Yeah, honestly, that's all I want. I don't even care if you make a lot of money. I just
Yeah.
want you to not feel like you're drowning. I
Yes.
have so many people, they're just like, I'm tired, I'm burnt out. My schedule is like, everything is just wrong. And I'm like, I remember feeling that way. So, like, that feeling, it sucks. So, if I can somehow help you change that feeling and you feel good, you get enough sleep, that's like all I want. And
Yes.
honestly, I want you to be debt free, just like
Yeah.
me. I was in debt until I actually focused on paying off the debt. And I didn't focus on paying off the debt because my brain was too tired thinking, what else can I do to make more money?
Mm, yeah.
It's like a vicious cycle.
So did you pay off all your student loans?
I did. I did. It took me 2 years to do it. But, I started off in the sales job and I was like, okay, well, I should probably start paying off some debt besides the house. And I did make a big mistake though. And I share this with people on social media, but when I first got my sales job, they gave me a car allowance, right? It was $600. And I remember I had a Nissan Rogue. It's like very nice SUV, nothing wrong with it. And I was like, I'm gonna trade this sucker in because I have a car note. I did the dumbest shit ever. I drove to the dealership with my husband. I was like, I'm getting a Range Rover because I have a $600 car allowance. So dumb. It's the dumbest thing I've ever done. And then after I did that purchase, I regretted it. Yeah. So I ended up getting a Toyota Prius a year later, paid it off, and then we just paid off everything. Paid off the cars, paid off my student loan. And I remember telling my husband, like, this is the check to pay off the Prius. Like, I want you to go to the bank. And he was like, why do you want me to go to the bank for? I was like, nope, this is like a symbolism thing. Like, this is it, like physical check. It says like $8,000 or whatever on it. I was like, you're gonna walk in there and you're gonna pay it off. And he's like, okay, you're crazy. But I'm like, we got to do it because it symbolizes like
Yeah.
freedom. I was like, you'll never forget that.
I agree. That's kind of similar to what Monica and I went through. We ended up buying gosh, I mean, till this day, I kind of regret it. It's a $70,000 Volvo XC90. And as much as I loved the car when I saw it, after we drove it off the lot, I said, oh my gosh, we just spent $70,000 on this car. And the loans, I remember it was like $1,270 a month.
That's
Yeah.
terrible.
Yes, yeah. And then when we moved to California, we wanted to buy a house. We didn't have enough money for the down payment, and we thought it would be a good idea to borrow money for a down payment.
Oh
And we did that.
no.
We borrowed $70,000, and that loan was $415 a month. So we had 1,270 plus 1,450, right? We had like $2,700 we were paying per month just on like that debt. It didn't even include our student loans.
Yeah.
So when COVID hit, that's when I told Monica that we needed to like really buckle down. We couldn't travel anyway.
Hmm.
So let's focus on paying off our debt. And we just picked up extra hours at our job and we paid off all the debt in like 1 year. So now we only owe on the house. But
Yeah.
man, just the journey to get there, we will never make that mistake. And you don't learn unless you make a mistake, right?
You don't learn unless you make this mistake. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're very similar because I was in the sales support position. I was like, okay, I really, really want to pay everything off. So because the job was really like flexible, I picked up like home health visits during my workday. I would like go see a patient and like do a start of care or something and do an admission for home health to make extra money. Because I'm like, okay, I need to increase my shovel because we're going to get out of this thing real quick. And then I'm going to be like, whew, I'm good. The only thing is if we still owe in the house, I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
But I don't want the cars or
exactly.
everything's gone.
Exactly. Did
Yeah.
you end up refinancing your house when the rates were low?
Oh my God, yes. Like right in before COVID. I remember my husband's like, I don't think this is a good idea. I'm like, I'm telling you, this is a good idea. We're refinancing right now. Like it's a 15-year or whatever. I'm like, well, we're doing
Yeah.
it. So now I'm like, I'm not moving.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. Okay, all right. So we're gonna I'm gonna ask you because there's gonna be a lot of our members who are gonna want to reach out to you at this point. Before I ask you how they can reach out to you, is there one tip you could give our members or our viewers that would allow them to get a sales position or point them in the right direction of what they could do to get into a sales rep position?
If you're coming from a clinical
Yeah.
background, you need to focus on your outreach.
Mm,
So wherever you're working, there is going to be somebody there for you to get their phone number, to get their card. You have to connect with them. Don't say you don't know any, because I used to be in the hospital all day and everyone thought I was like, I worked there. I would be in scrubs. I would go into a patient's room. I talked to a nurse every single day and they never asked me who I was, where did I work, or for my information. So wherever you are now, focus, like, be aware of who you can contact and make a physical human connection with.
mm. I love that. And if one of our viewers is interested in reaching out to you, how would they do that?
Well, I'm on Instagram and TikTok, Nurse Gene Star, or my website, nursetosales.com.
If you enjoyed this video, then you're going to enjoy this video right here where I interviewed a nurse who works in telehealth and is also absolutely killing it.